Still, one of the most magical experiences I've had is when we were about 5 kilometres off of the coast of Penzance in Cornwall. And this is what a lot of people don't realise, that you can have these incredible experiences with these animals in UK waters. And I just remember the tension and the excitement as we were heading out there. It was a species that I'd never seen before but wanted to see for years and years. And I knew how beautiful and how charismatic they were. And once we got in the water, and this is no land in sight, you can't see the bottom, it is just blue in every direction, and then these incredible, stunning, sleek, electric blue sharks just sort of appear out of nowhere and come in, and they're so inquisitive, so calm and curious and graceful as they come around you, being really inquisitive, because these sharks are much more inquisitive than most other species. Most species will swim away from you as soon as they catch your eye. But blue sharks, because they live in the oceanic zone, they live in the open ocean, they hardly ever see anything else, let alone these big, interesting things that are snorkelers. So as soon as they see us bobbing around on the surface, they come in for a closer look. So this creates just the most incredible experience, and I would highly recommend, if you ever get the chance, go on a blue shark snorkeling trip. It will blow your mind how beautiful and how graceful these animals are. Welcome to Ocean Unpacked, your one-stop shop to get the latest in ocean news and marine research, along with some amazing facts about life in our seas. With me, Greg Holder.
And me, Julian Giovellino. So on this episode, we're going to be diving into what's all the buzz around sharks. Are they really the man-eating monsters that the movies and the media depicts them to be, or are they just incredibly misunderstood creatures? So, sharks, they've been in our oceans for an extremely long time, right, Greg?
Yeah, absolutely. They've actually been around longer than trees have. It's kind of hard to even imagine the world without trees, but sharks, in some form, have been swimming in our oceans, being this top predator, for over 400 million years. Way longer than the dinosaurs, older than many, many other animals that we see today. And they are incredibly resilient. In that time, over that 400 million years, they've survived over 5 mass extinctions. Obviously the ones that wiped out the dinosaurs 66 million years ago, and one that was even worse 250 million years ago, which wiped out about 95% of all life in the oceans. And even in that time, sharks carried on and were resilient enough to survive and be the top predators they are today. So they are a super, super old, super special group of species.
That is insane. I remember the first time when I learned that they were older than trees. That absolutely blew my mind. So some really, really incredible animals. And like you said, really, really resilient. A lot of people know that the health of our oceans is important, but I feel like not a lot of people understand the role that sharks play in that, and kind of where they sit in helping to maintain the health of all the ocean's ecosystems.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such an underappreciated group of species. A lot of people just know sharks as either this really scary animal or maybe even this really interesting and exciting predator, but not many people think of them as like the protectors of our oceans, and they really are. Being that top predator and having so many different species as well, they're incredibly varied, and so they're top predators across all of the ecosystems within our oceans, whether it's the shallow coral reefs, it's the deep seas or the open ocean. Sharks are there. They are across all our oceans, and they're controlling fish numbers and the health of the oceans by being this top predator, removing disease, stopping any species sort of overpopulating and becoming overly dominant. They play a very similar role as, say, wolves do in the sort of land habitats, and wolves are very well known to be that keystone species. Well, sharks are doing exactly the same, but in the oceans.
Exactly, and I feel like there's a bit of this misconception that because sharks are a top predator, that they're actually kind of eating out all the fish that are below them in the food chain. But like you said, they're really important maintaining that balance in that ecosystem, making sure that not one fish species kind of overpopulates and affects all the other species below it. So, incredibly important for keeping that balance in the ocean. But of course, another misconception that a lot of people might have is that sharks are these kind of dangerous animals that, might just take a bite out of you as soon as you step foot in the water. But I feel like they're not actually as dangerous as they're made out to be in films and in media, are they?
No, definitely not. Like, I'm not going to say sharks aren't dangerous. Of course, certain species of sharks are dangerous, and you absolutely should be showing them respect that they deserve as a large top predator. But on the big scale of things, sharks are not nearly as much of a threat to humans as most people think. So many people don't even want to go in the ocean for the fear of being bitten or attacked by a shark. And actually, it's an incredibly rare occurrence all around the world, even in the places that are known as the shark hotspots and the shark bite hotspots. They're actually still incredibly rare. And there's so many things, you could have a list as long as your arm about the different animals that actually are more dangerous and kill more people every year than sharks do. And it includes the obvious ones like spiders and snakes, but then you get some weird ones like cows kill more people, horses kill more people, dogs kill many more people. And then you can add to the list the inanimate objects, like more people die on the toilet, more people die from vending machines falling on them, or coconuts. It's not a serious threat to humans in the vast majority of cases. Only in very, very specific locations in specific scenarios or times of day are sharks a threat that you need to genuinely consider. Most of the time, around most areas of the ocean, we're lucky to have encounters with the sharks, and they include nothing but a shark passing by a snorkeler or a diver or a fisher or whatever it might be. So they really don't pose that threat that most people think.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of the fear comes out of kind of this, the fact that people don't see them, that they don't understand them. I think a lot of people fear them because their only exposure to sharks is through the TV screen.
Yeah,
And
it's the media.
Yeah, and so I remember the first time I saw a shark underwater, and it was a bit of this moment where it was kind of like, oh, is it going to be a fight or flight moment? Am I going to be really, really terrified, or is it just going to be a completely surreal experience? And it was definitely the second. It was definitely the latter. And I think the first shark that I saw was a black tip reef shark, and it just was not menacing. It wasn't like this big, threatening looking animal that I felt that I was in danger being close to it. So just really, really some really amazing animals. And I don't know if that was the same for you when you had your first encounter with a shark.
Yeah, it was. I remember it vividly. It was the same sort of thing. At the moment you see a shark, you have a little bit of, oh my god, that's a shark, what's going to happen? And then within a few seconds you realize they don't care. So many people, whenever I take people out swimming, like snorkeling, and they might see a shark and they're super scared, once they've actually seen a shark, it completely changes their perspective, because they see that they're just another fish swimming around in the sea. They don't stop and look at you, they just carry on. If anything, they're probably going to turn around and swim away from you. So it absolutely, it's very different to what most people picture their shark encounter to be like. But it's super special. And when I first saw my first shark, I just fell in love instantly. I just wanted to spend as much time with them, and that was a moment which changed my life, because I was like, these are amazing, and I just want to see them as much as possible.
Yeah, 100% fear you. So there you have it. If you have a fear of sharks, you just need to get in the water with them. Easy as that.
Absolutely.
But of course, we have a very important question then. I mean, obviously, you've seen your fair share of sharks, being a scuba instructor, having worked in the Maldives. So what is your favorite species of shark?
Oh, that's always a hard one. I get asked that a lot. I've never been able to narrow it down to one. There's too many out there. There's over 500 different species of shark. I can't just pick one, but I generally have narrowed it down to sort of two categories. One is sort of my scientific favorite shark, which is a hammerhead. They're just super cool, super evolved animals. They're like the upgrade. They're the souped up version of all other sharks. They are the latest model.
The
Exactly. They
iPhone,
literally are.
iPhone 17 of sharks.
The iPhone 17 with the Pro version and everything. They've just got the hyped up sensors. With that hammer shaped head, they have better vision with binocular vision. They have directional smell. They have a bigger surface area for their ampullae of Lorenzini and their electrosense. They are just this super hyped up car of a predatory animal. So it's just, I love them for the science of it. And then my favorite animal in my heart, I guess that's my brain talking, and my favorite animal in my heart is blue sharks.
Definitely.
Yeah, you've recently had an encounter.
Yeah,
you know what it's like, right?
Yeah.
They're super special. They are so graceful, so beautiful with that electric blue, and so curious as well. They really have character, and a lot of sharks do, but these blues really show their character, on your first encounter with them.
Yeah, 100% agree with you there. I was recently diving in the Azores, and I had my first encounter with blue sharks, and instantly fell in love with them. Instantly became my new favorite shark. Just really, really beautiful. Like you said, like there's this incredible blue color to them. I mean, it's obvious in the name, but when you actually see it, it just really stands out. And they're incredibly curious as well. They get really, really quite close to you, but they don't look menacing at all. If anything, I always thought they just looked a little bit confused with their big eyes and their long snout. So
they really do. Yeah, they look very innocent.
Yeah, again, not exactly the most menacing creatures. But speaking of species of sharks, actually recently I heard that they discovered a new species of shark.
Yeah. So it happens really quite regularly. I mentioned there's over 500 different species of sharks, but there can be up to 10 to 15 new shark species identified every single year. But actually, yeah, there's been one really recently, just on the 6th of October this year. It was sort of officially classified, the Western Australian lantern shark, a new deep sea species that's obviously found, you've guessed it, in Western Australia. And
surprise.
Just similar, lantern shark is quite a large group of sharks, all deep sea species and all pretty small as well. The smallest shark species known, the dwarf lantern shark, is obviously in that group at only 20 centimeters long. This one gets a little bigger, so the longest one they've found is about 40 centimeters long, but of course it's a brand new species, so we don't really know much about it apart from that it now exists, which is really exciting. And one of the amazing features of this lantern shark, this new species, that actually a surprising number of sharks share with it, and it's growing. We learn more and more sharks can do this, is the ability to actually glow in the dark. They actually have a bioluminescence, which is potentially a way to sort of communicate and find each other without giving their location away to other animals that can't see that wavelength, which is just another super cool feature of sharks.
Really incredible. I guess that's why they call them lantern sharks, for that glowing feature.
Exactly.
But yeah, no, really cool. And I mean, this was a shark that was found in the deep ocean as well. I think it was around 600 meters that they found it. Yeah. So it just goes to show, how kind of little we know about species from the deep ocean. There's easily many, many other shark species that haven't been discovered. I think there's that kind of quite famous saying that we know more about space than we know about the deep ocean.
We know more about the surface of the moon or deep space than we hardly know anything about the deep oceans. It
blows my mind because it's
such a crazy.
It's literally part of our planet, and you just feel like we've kind of explored almost all of it. But to think that we know more about space than we do about deep ocean, it's just it's hard to wrap your head around that. And so who knows? Who knows what other shark species could be.
There's still so much to learn. There's so many species that we definitely don't know about, shark species and other fish species. But even the shark species we do know about, many of them we don't really know much about them. Particularly reproduction is like a super hard area to study of sharks. There's some of the most well-known or popular sharks in the world, like whale sharks, where we still don't know where they give birth. Hammerheads is one that we still don't really know that much about, and are learning a lot in sort of just the last few years, really. And I think you said, Julian, you there's some new research out recently about a hammerhead shark somewhere.
Yeah, and I mean that's exactly right. I feel like especially in the last few years, there's been a lot of research coming out about learning about shark reproduction, about the migration patterns of sharks as well. And there was one recent study that came out, which was actually the first ever recorded birthing migration for scalloped
No
hammerhead
way.
sharks.
Wow.
So what happened was there was a team of researchers that essentially tagged a hammerhead shark in the Galapagos and named her Alicia. Very nice name for a hammerhead shark. So when they tagged this shark, she was actually pregnant. And from the recording of the satellite tag, they found that she traveled over 6,000 kilometers, which is the longest distance recorded for a scalloped hammerhead shark.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And it showed she actually traveled to the western coast of Panama, which is a well-known birthing area for scalloped hammerhead sharks, and then swam all the way across back past the Galapagos and ended up somewhere, 1,500 kilometers west of the archipelago. So, huge distances traveled by this shark, and also not only traveling through coastal waters, but through open ocean waters as well. So it really reveals a lot about the kind of migration corridors and the migration routes that these species like scalloped hammerheads take. And what's so important about research like this that shows where these sharks are going is that it can help us understand, where are some really key areas that we need to increase protection on. So not just, let's say, around the Galapagos or on the coast of Panama, but also along these kind of migration corridors where these sharks are swimming. But obviously that's a little bit trickier because as soon as you kind of leave these boundaries of these maritime boundaries of countries, you end up in the high seas, in international waters, which makes it a lot more difficult to protect, a lot more difficult to regulate.
Yeah, well, that's the unique thing, isn't it, with the oceans? On land, okay, we need to do a better job of protecting it, but everywhere on land is owned by a country, right? So it's on that country to protect that area, and some countries do it better than others, but at least there's responsibility. The oceans, you've got 20 kilometers of sea off your coast that is yours, and the rest of the ocean, 2/3 of the ocean is a free for all. It's no one's and everyone's. And the problem with that is that how do you police that? How do you protect a place like the high seas?
It is very difficult. But fortunately, very recently, there's been some really good news where actually the High Seas Treaty was recently ratified. So
Yes, I saw this.
19th of September, Morocco joined to become the 60th country to ratify the treaty, which means that treaty now has the threshold it needs to become legally binding.
That's big news, dude.
It's a huge milestone.
That's massive, right?
It's
for ocean conservation.
Because previously there's been no actual governing body or no actual framework in place to help safeguard marine life in the areas beyond national jurisdiction. And currently, only 1% of the high seas is protected, despite, like you said, covering almost 2/3 of the ocean surface. But, with this framework, with the High Seas Treaty, a lot of countries will now be able to kind of collaborate and take more action to protect places like where these hammerhead sharks are migrating through, these kind of migration corridors in the open seas, where they are traveling between their birthing grounds and to wherever they're foraging or wherever they're residing for the rest of their time.
Really, this is just so massive, Julian. This is really, really big news. This could make a massive difference to ocean protection, and I know a lot of conservationists, we're doing big celebrations for this ratification. There is a lot more to come, and I think this is way too big a topic to talk about in this podcast. So we're definitely, if there's interest, we'll definitely make a specific podcast to talk more about the High Seas Treaty. What is it? What does it mean to us? What does it mean to other countries? What does it mean to wildlife? And what's there still to do? Because there's still a lot to do before this really starts to protect wildlife, but it's a massive step in the right direction.
Yeah, no, absolutely with you there. It cannot be understated. It is a huge milestone, and if it's done well, it could really, really be a game changer.
Yeah, and bringing it back onto topic for sharks are without doubt a massively migratory species. You talked about the paper earlier, hammerhead sharks traveling 6,000 miles. We've got great whites that travel across oceans, oceanic white tips, silky sharks that live in the high seas. You've got whale sharks, which travel across oceans. So many shark species use the high seas as either their home or as like a transit between birthing and feeding or whatever it might be. So without doubt, this treaty is going to impact sharks as well as turtles, fish, migrating whales, dolphins. All marine life is going to be affected by this treaty. So it's massive, and we can't wait to dig in and dive a bit deeper with this. But for now, I think that brings us to the end of the podcast. So thank you so much for listening, and I hope we'll see you again soon.
See you soon.
Bye.